What up? It's your boy T-Bird here. Reaction. Today's Wrestling Wednesday. The document that we want to check out is from Wrestling Bios. We recently released this yesterday. If you know, Wrestling Bios is the one I saw the awesome pro wrestling face turn videos. Though you know, he's like he didn't like faces, but either way, so folks tell me to keep watching, and I will watch it. And this one came to mind, so I thought this was a good one to check out. Now, we all know the Attitude Era has some savage moments. It's been so many savage moments in wrestling in general. But this one took a cake. Now, the one person that was just took savageness to the max, and that was Big Boss Man. One of the infamous one he did was the whole situation with Big Show's daddy, to the point of dragging his coffin around and everything too. But before that, because while Triple H supposedly, you thought Triple H was the most hated heel and most sadistic heel in, well, he wasn't that sadistic, was sick heel in wrestling. Boss Man was trying to up that though, but he's stuck in the mid-card hardcore circuit that he couldn't surpass the main level anymore. But he was a savage, and one of the most savage thing he did was his little storyline with Al Snow and his Chihuahua. Oh my god! And then the closest craziest one I heard was when Earthquake from the early golden days, Earthquake squashed Jake Snake's Infinite Snake Damien, and then turned into a snake burger. It turned into a snake burger, and on one of the late night shows he used to have on WWE. But this one just take the cake. So this is what he called the awful WWF Kennel from Hell match. And the match I will say did end up being bad, because for everything that led up to it though, the match did not feed off of the whole promo and drama of it all. It did not. But anyway, let's get it. It did not capitalize at all. I may play the remix of this thing. Like I said, everything around it was good. Just the match payoff was hella anticlimactic, man.
Alright, so you've got two guys in the ring fighting on pay-per-view. Let's gimmick it up a little and put a steel cage around the ring. No, let's put a steel cage in the ring and let's add the Hell in a Cell. That's awesome. No, wait, let's put a steel cage around the ring. Let's put the Hell in a Cell around the steel cage. And in between the cage and the cell, let's put in some vicious badass Rottweilers who'll tear the competitors limb from limb as they try to escape two steel structures in one match. What do you think? Could this work? I mean, it sounds like overkill, but if all went according to plan, you could have one of the most unique and out-of-the-box matches in wrestling history. Yeah, no. The Dog Kennel from Hell match pitting
Al Snow was that it sounded good on paper, but poorly executed.
Snow against the Big Boss Man is one of those wrestling bouts that live on in infamy thanks to how stupid and ridiculous the gimmick match was, and that's really saying something. Here we have two great performers put in a position that had so much potential for disaster, yet they were pretty much powerless to do anything about it. The competitors in the company had to rely on those doggos following the script and not working themselves into a shoot brother, but seeing as the World Wrestling Federation didn't consider bringing in actual trained dogs for the match, what we ended up getting was unintentionally hilarious and truly awful. So bad that Vince McMahon apologized to Al Snow for putting him in such a bad spot, and I'm sure he apologized to Big Ray Trailer too. Let's take a look at the Kennel from Hell match. According to Al Snow himself, Vince Russo
should have we should have known. Of course. Of course. Who else? Who else? This guy. I swear he had to be the worst place. He had to be the worst thing to happen in wrestling sometimes. Not the worst, but he just... Of course it's Vince Russo.
Russo approached them and he was told the company wanted to get rid of Head, Al's mascot who had gotten more popular and more over.
Why? Fucking Vince Russo. That's all I'm gonna say.
Than some professional wrestlers. Russo had seen the 1999 movie Summer of Sam, and that movie was based on the Son of Sam David Berkowitz serial murders, where Berkowitz heard voices from a dog that pleaded with him to kill. So Russo thought Al Snow hearing voices from a dog would be more endearing than Al's mannequin Head, who by 1999 had become synonymous with Al Snow's character. Al said that he'd do it, but he wanted a trained dog, a trained chihuahua. If this thing was going to work, then his new friend needed to be a serious professional and a doggo of the highest magnitude. When Al Snow met Pepper the Chihuahua for the very first time, he asked the lady who brought him to TV if she was the trainer. She said no, she's the owner. So Russo and the WWF didn't get Al a trained dog as requested. Russo blew it off by saying it's only a Chihuahua and things would be okay, there's no need to worry. But keep this in mind, because Al would make a similar request when the Dog Kennel from Hell match was pitched to him before the Unforgiven 1999 pay-per-view. To tell the Kennel from Hell story, we also have to take a look at the life and times of Pepper. Our story begins all the way back in July of '99. Al Snow wrestles draws in a hardcore evening gown match. Don't ask. Al Snow wins.
God, I forgot they had that for dudes. Of course, Al Snow. That's the thing about Al Snow. That you gotta give him props though. He'll do anything.
The match and he retains his hardcore title, and he puts draws through a table afterwards. Prince Albert draws his tag team partner at the time, runs down to the ring, and he proceeds to impale Head with a railroad spike, causing Al Snow to completely lose his mind. Head was Al's best friend. He loved Head. The two were inseparable, and Head would even talk to Al from time to time. This injury though on Raw's War would end up changing Al and making him even more unstable. Al couldn't sleep and he was a mess. He went to Raw the next week for a match against the Big Boss Man, and before the match began, he screamed at Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross to make it stop. Ross says Snow's been hearing voices in his head, and even the boys backstage were unable to talk to Al. He was completely gone. Head's still here, and it looks like Al tried to apply some bandages in hopes of bringing Head back, but clearly it hasn't worked. The Big Boss Man gets in the ring and Al begs him to whack him as hard as he can, hoping a good smack will give him a rest from the voices in his head. And Bossman had no issues beating the hell out of Al as requested.
Yeah.
Al gets handcuffed to the
I
rope.
love Al Snow character was wild. I loved it. You gotta love it though. The heel turn was like pretty much wasn't needed. I'll be honest. I know they wanted to give somebody a good little feud with Mick Foley, who was the top face at the time, but the heel turn was he was too loved. And I'm glad they
and he takes further
I'm glad they
punishment from
kind
the
of
Big Boss Man, and Al does seem to get.
Yeah, I was great. I'm kind of glad they got rescinded and we got Head Cheese with him and Steve Blackman. But yeah, his character was cool, was awesome, man. No lie.
A little relief, judging by his uneasy smile at the end of the beatdown. Fully Loaded took place later in the week on pay-per-view, and Al said it wasn't so much the voices that were driving him insane, it was the constant screaming. Al wanted Cole to tell him what the Boss Man could do to make it stop again, and Cole has no clue what to do nor say. The hardcore title was on the line in this Snow vs Boss Man Fully Loaded encounter, and Snow pleaded with the Boss Man to hit him again at the beginning of the match. Boss Man instead knocked that spike a little deeper into Head's head, and this made Snow go completely berserk, and finally he began attacking his opponent.
Yep.
Their match went all around the arena. It spilled out to the mean streets of Buffalo, New York, and as far as these kind of WWF hardcore matches
the hardcore matches back then was awesome. They would go damn near everywhere. My goodness.
At all, you do know what to expect though. In the end, Boss Man handcuffed Snow and he proceeded to beat him with his nightstick. Al couldn't continue and he had no place to go, so the Boss Man became hardcore champion champion, and the screaming inside Al's head would continue on. The next night on Raw though, Al would learn that he could also understand a little dog who appeared backstage while Al was trying to deal with the trauma he's went through these past few weeks. While comparing himself to Dr. Dolittle, he asked the Chihuahua to come back after it walked out of frame. And so a bond was formed between Al Snow and this little dog named Pepper. Al and Pepper became friends even when it looked like Head was back to 100%. Can't believe I just said that. And while Al still looked tired, he seemed to be in better spirits thanks to little Pepper. On the 9th of August episode of Raw, Bossman competed in a non-title hardcore match against Road Dogg Jesse James, and it was announced here that Al Snow was getting a rematch against the Bossman at SummerSlam. Bossman puts Road Dogg through a table, Snow shows up and he hits Bossman with Pepper's dog carrier, and it's implied that Pepper was still in there as Al talks to the box. The week after that, Snow handed Pepper to Jerry Lawler before wrestling a match against Goldust, and Pepper watched on with excitement as Snow tried to win his match. Unfortunately though, the big boss man showed up and he attacked both Al and the Road Dogg behind the referee's back. I love how Road Dogg just conveniently fell on top of Snow here to get that all-important 3 count. So, at this point, it looked like Pepper had completely replaced Head, and even in defeat, Al looked a little better. He'd go on to SummerSlam to try and reclaim the hardcore title, and again, if you like hardcore matches that travel away from the ring and arena, then you're going to enjoy this one. Al had to calm Pepper down before the match began, seeing as the big boss man had threatened both Al and his little dog. Snow told Pepper it'd be alright, and Al was here to save the day. And yes, Al would defeat the big boss man in a match that went all the way to a bar across the road from the Target Center in Minneapolis. Pepper was put in a doggy carrier before the match, and Al waited for the boss man at the entranceway to catch him by surprise. Backstage, the boss man used Pepper's carrier to attack Snow, and again it was implied that Pepper was in there, but don't worry, Pepper was safe and sound. With a little help from the Road Dogg, Al Snow was able to defeat the boss man, but afterwards there were 2 guys trying to take Pepper away, the Blue Meanie and Stevie Richards. Fortunately, Al was able to save his friend and fight these guys off, but Pepper had become a target for those wanting to get to Al Snow, something that the big boss man knew all too well.
Oh yeah.
Pepper watched on as Al Snow battled the Road Dogg the next night on Raw, and just as things began heating up, the Y2J countdown appeared on the Titantron. Chris had debuted a few weeks prior, and he was going after the Road Dogg. Road Dogg put Snow through a table just before he and Jericho fought their way back up the entranceway, and that's when the big boss man appears. Snow gets knocked out again, and the boss man takes Pepper.
Yeah.
Pepper's been dog-napped, and there's nothing Al can do about it. Boss man puts the dog in his car and he drives off. Al gives chase, and throughout Raw, Snow was seen asking people if they knew where Pepper had gone, and he was also seen looking completely defeated as he slowly walked around the arena corridors. SmackDown would begin airing weekly on UPN later that week, and the boss man said he was going to appear at the historic show with Al Snow's dog, and Al begged the boss man to give him back. He hopes that Pepper was well looked after, and he hopes Pepper was well fed, but Al's desperate and he just wants his little friend back. Bossman comes to the ring, he doesn't have Pepper, instead he has an offer to make Al Snow. Al can have Pepper back if the big boss man gets a shot at the hardcore title. Win, lose or draw, Pepper will get returned, but Al has to go back and get his hardcore belt, and he has to put it on the line in a match on SmackDown. We come back from a commercial break and Al's ready to go. The boss man walks down to the ring holding Pepper, and look, Pepper's got a muzzle on. Boss man said Pepper bit him, and so extra measures were taken to ensure boss man's safety, and yeah, totally unnecessary. I know a lot of people maybe couldn't care less, but that little dog seemed really afraid sometimes on TV. The match goes ahead, and there's some good and dangerous ladder spots in this one, but it's a shot with Bossman's nightstick that leads to a new hardcore champion getting crowned on SmackDown. And as for that deal the Bossman made with Snow before the match, forget about it. Pepper gets taken away once again. Al angrily tries to find the boss man backstage, but Jerry Lawler says the boss man's already gone. He even goes to the production truck towards the end of the show, but he leaves empty-handed. So this landmark episode of SmackDown wasn't a good one for Al Snow. Anger once again turned to desperation when Al revealed on Raw that he was putting up posters everywhere hoping someone would contact him in relation to Pepper, but there was no need because it seemed like Snow's luck had turned around when the big boss man went to the ring and he announced he wanted to make amends. Just before we get to that, apparently this was Val Venus's phone number that Al Snow displayed on Raw's War. Bossman calls Al to the ring and he says what he did on SmackDown was wrong. Al lived up to his end of the bargain and he put the hardcore title on the line, and Bossman shouldn't have left SmackDown with Pepper. So, to make things right, Bossman wants Al to visit his hotel room on Thursday night and Pepper will get handed back. Pepper's been well looked after, he's all good. Bossman understands what Snow's going through, seeing as he had a pet dog himself when he was a young Bossman. So, no tricks, no messing around. Snow just needs to visit Bossman's hotel room on SmackDown and Pepper will get returned. What could possibly go wrong?
Y'all thought the Big Show casket situation was fucked up. That big Bossman did. Whew! This might not be that. No, this was just up there with this. This was before that.
So, Al Snow shows up to the Bossman's hotel room and Pepper isn't around. Apparently, Pepper's at the groomers getting all spruced up for when Al takes him home. Bossman wants Al to take a seat and oh god. Yeah, Bossman wants Al to take a seat because the Bossman wants to make things right and serve Al a tasty meal. Snow doesn't want to eat, he just wants his dog back, but Bossman's adamant that Al gives him a chance and Al has to let Bossman make amends. They come to an agreement. Snow will have some food as long as he gets Pepper back immediately afterwards, and the Bossman's absolutely fine with that idea. Al tucks in and the Bossman asks him how does it taste. Al says it's pretty good. And Bossman tells Al to be careful he doesn't get one of those paws stuck in his teeth. That's right, Al Snow's eating Pepper. I've read that this was inspired by a Mr. Fuji story where Fuji actually fed a dog to an unnamed wrestler. Al Snow said that was the case and there's a video of Hillbilly Jim telling the story too. It could very well be an urban legend of sorts and the story's changed from an unknown wrestler to Fuji's next door neighbor. Either way though, this stuff on SmackDown was absolutely crazy, and it's not over yet. Snow gets whacked
How the chick got stuck in his gum like that
with a tray and he gets his head shoved in his meal. Bossman hits Al with his nightstick, he calls Pepper a little bastard, and the Bossman tries some of Al's dinner before saying it tastes just like chicken. Jerry Lawler's expression afterwards tells the whole story. Michael Cole almost throws up when the King says Al Snow just had Pepper's steak, and the commentators are trying to digest what just happened.
Yo, Jerry Lawler is a goat. Lawler's the GOAT. That's all I'm gonna say. Lawler's the GOAT. Lawler's the GOAT. Almost all I'm gonna say about that. Lawler's the GOAT.
Snow, meanwhile, is digesting poor little Pepper.
Poor
it's another moment in pro wrestling history
Shout out
that
to
hasn't
for
been
that,
forgotten, and that's
reactions.
thanks to how absolutely insane it
that
was.
was so
It feels
up.
like it has
I know
this
it's fake,
weird
but that
mix
was
of
so fucked
intentions
up.
where the company wanted fans to be shocked, and they also wanted fans to laugh at the same time. But if you look online and see what other people thought about this whole thing, there's a wide range of emotions.
Here we go. Bossman was funny in a sick sort of way, but for some reason when he feeds out the doll, that scene makes me laugh because it's so damn stupid. Okay, feeding was great. The other two era Bossman is the most underrated possibly. Yeah, I saw you. You thought Triple H was the evil heel. This motherfucker was the evil heel, and this is before the situation with Big Show. Like I said, it's one of my favorite despite because of how terror is. But Big Boss, yeah. The thing I remember most vividly when watching wrestling is by far Bossman feeding all those stuff. It fucked me up. This was my. Yeah, I'm about to say, yeah, you had to tell your kids was fake at this because you know some kids was getting traumatized watching that.
On display. Some folks talked about crying at the bit, some thought it went too far, some said it's possibly the worst moment of the whole Attitude Era, and some thought it was hilarious while saying it's not real, get a grip. To be fair, I can see how it could affect some younger viewers.
Yeah.
Still, prime Attitude Era nonsense and a bit that lives on in infamy. And as far as our story goes here today, Pepper was now gone. Okay, so now we know about the life and times of Pepper, we're going to get to the Kennel from Hell match and how it came about. You thought that last bit was bad, did you?
Oh, yeah.
Avatar made a comeback on the following episode of Raw.
He was going through his all his alter egos. He all the gimmicks he portrayed before he became Al Snow. It was crazy.
Yeah, one of Al Snow's failed WWF gimmicks from 1995. Snow's Avatar and Shinobi gimmicks were ridiculed by fans and critics back in the mid-90s, and Al was fully aware of that fact too. He gets in the ring and he says, "Do not fear, citizens. Avatar's here to save fans from bad doers and evil nuclear monsters spawned in Japan." He then realizes what he's doing and he has a breakdown. He takes the mask off and he can't believe he's walked out on Raw dressed as Avatar, saying, and I quote, "The last time they made me wear this outfit, you could have stuffed a magnet up my ass and dragged me through Fort Knox and I still wouldn't have drawn money." Al loses it. He begins barking like a dog and he runs over to the commentary table where he furiously writes or draws something on JR's notepad. Seems like Al isn't coping too well with what happened, and hey, who would? On SmackDown, the Boss Man started things off by inviting anyone in the back to come down and try to take his hardcore away. More specifically, if there were any dog lovers in the back, then the Boss Man would love to meet them in the middle of the ring. Davey Boy Smith makes his WWF return here, oh yeah. And if there's anyone who knows a thing or two about doggos, it's probably Davey Boy Smith, or at least we assume so anyway. Davey, complete with a new banging theme song, goes on to defeat the Big Boss Man and win the hardcore title. And just as Davey was heading back up the ramp, Leif Cassidy appeared, Al's gimmick when he was in the new Rockers tag team. Snow takes that page from Jim Ross's notebook that he scribbled on and he shoves it in the Boss Man's mouth. Davey then gives the title to Al Snow. Davey clearly has bigger fish to fry. And Al then realizes he's dressed in his old Rockers gear before SmackDown moves on to its next match. Bossman's a little annoyed backstage about that piece of paper. Something was written on it that has him on edge, but we wouldn't find out what it was until Raw the next week. Bossman interrupts a British Bulldog promo on Raw then. Al Snow interrupts the Bossman, and it's revealed that a very special challenge was written on that piece of paper. A match where both a steel cage and the Hell in a Cell would surround the ring, and the winner's the man who can escape both cages. Bossman accepts the challenge as long as the hardcore title's on the line, so the match is made official for Unforgiven 1999. Snow then reveals that in between the cages will be some of Pepper's old friends, a few Rottweilers, and Al wants to introduce a few of these dogs to the Big Boss Man. Yep. Boss Man backs up and he's attacked by the Bulldog, and Boss Man has to escape through the audience when the dogs chase him around the ring. Remember, Al requested Pepper to be a trained dog? Well, he requested the same for these Rottweilers. It was very important that these dogs in this upcoming match were well trained and obedient, because this thing was going to happen on pay-per-view, and also it really was a big opportunity for both Al Snow and the Big Boss Man. Think about it, a match that featured both a steel cage and a Hell in a Cell could have been used as the ultimate feud ender for guys like Taker, Triple H, Austin, or Rock. It could have been promoted heavily as the most brutal match in WWF history. Al Snow and the Boss Man were going to get a shot at using these two iconic structures in a single bout. The dogs were always going to be the most unpredictable aspect of the contest, so if the WWF were hell-bent on using animals in a wrestling match, Al just wanted to make sure they would be the best dogs the company could get. He revealed that the company got in touch with a local vet clinic and they got a random list of Rottweiler owners. They were contacted by WWF to show up at Unforgiven. So no, these dogs were not highly trained, and the company's laziness would make Snow and Bossman's big opportunity a complete embarrassment. Russo said the plan was to get dogs from the local police department, but the request was rejected because, you know, why would any police department ever do that? Pepper on a pole, ladies and gentlemen. What was left of Pepper would be put on a pole on SmackDown, and there'd be a match for it. You couldn't make this up. What was left of the Pepper steak was put in a doggy bag. And the Boss Man said he'd feed it to Al after he was done kicking his ass. The match was nothing special, but the concept of the match was something for sure. Davey Boy Smith brought down the Rottweilers again, and Boss Man said, you know what, it isn't worth it. So he took the doggy bag and he threw it out of the ring. Al grabbed it, and Michael Cole said apparently the winner of the match was the one who held the doggy bag outside the ring, so Al Snow wins. How convenient. Bossman gets chased around again and the crowd's kinda indifferent to it all. On Raw, Al Snow held a funeral service for Pepper, and the big Bossman paid his respects afterwards. And then later in
Who remember GTV? My goodness. Oh man, who remember them? That was the thing back in the day. Oh yeah, that was the thing they used to have on Raw.
the night, Bossman had a match with Hardcore Holly where this happened.
Boy, this is hardcore.
Oh yeah, he smacked. Oh yeah, he smacked the fuck out of him with that glass pitcher. I remember that. Oh yeah, he busted the shit out of Bossman with that glass pitcher. God, I remember that. Oh my god, I actually remember that match. Oh yeah.
The gimmicked water jug ended up causing Bossman some damage and he couldn't open his eye properly. His face was also swollen up pretty badly, so yeah, not a good night. Al Snow also showed the Bossman what these Rottweilers were going to do to him at Unforgiven, or at least what he hoped they'd do to him. The two dogs weren't very vicious, to be honest, and this should have been a sign of things to come. On the SmackDown before Unforgiven, the Bossman got the dogs all fired up while they were locked in a car. And in the ring, he fed Al Snow some dog food after Snow's match with Hard.
For the whole dog food thing with Corbin and Roman, back when Roman was the face and Corbin still a heel.
Core Holly. We got a good look at the Bossman's eye here too, and it didn't look good at all. Alright, Unforgiven, the end of our story. Al Snow versus the Big Bossman is third from last, and the competitors knew beforehand that this wasn't going to play out as originally envisioned. Now, the positives. First, the cage and the Hell in a Cell together looked great and it looked very grand on TV. Secondly, the competitors, in particular Al Snow, knew the dogs wouldn't be as ferocious as originally planned, so he made the call to add a ton of weapons to the match, and hopefully that would be enough to still entertain the viewers. Unfortunately, there was no way around not including the Rottweilers in some capacity, and it would have been ridiculous if they weren't involved at all. It was a Kennel from Hell match after all, and the issues began as soon as the dogs entered the Hell in a Cell. One of the dogs urinated as soon as it got in. This should have been another sign of things to come, really. And reports stated that the dogs also defecated around the ring. Obviously, they also tried to mate.
These bitches are in heat.
But we got this to show on pay-per-view, thankfully. Fans expected vicious dogs trying to rip Bossman and Al Snow apart, but what they got was a dog walking club hanging around outside the ring. The owners had smiles on their faces as their dogs pretty much did absolutely nothing at all. And even when a competitor fell out of the ring, the dogs couldn't have cared less. They were too busy congregating and barking at each other. There was practically no danger involved in between the two structures, and the audience in attendance were quick to pick up on this fact. A few boring chants could be heard throughout the arena, and the competitors pretty much lost the crowd. Even bigger spots like suplexes off the cage and weapon shots didn't do much to excite the audience. Things did get a little interesting when the Bossman tried to open the roof of the cell and make an escape attempt without having to go anywhere near the dogs. The escape didn't work though, and the match continued on, much to the dismay of fans inside the arena. Snow begins loosening a bottom turnbuckle, but he gives up and that spot gets called off. He tries to feed the Bossman's hand to the playful dogs, and even the dog owners don't know what to do here. So the competitors decide to get the match over and done with and get back to the dressing room. The Bossman handcuffs Al Snow and he tries to escape again from the cell roof. Al manages to break the handcuffs and there's absolutely no reaction. He stops the Bossman's escape and Big Ray gets crotched on the top rope, but again, no reaction. And then Al pulls head out of his bag of toys, and yes, this gets a cheer from the audience. Bossman gets wiped out, Snow tries to make an exit. He jumps from one cage to the other while Bossman makes one last attempt to escape from the ceiling, but it was all for nothing. Al kicks the cell door open and he dashes out. Al Snow wins the Kennel from Hell match. You can sense the disappointment here from Bossman and Al Snow. Jim Ross says this will probably be the first and last Kennel from Hell match, and Jerry Lawler says it was flat out stupid because the dogs didn't do anything at all. One of the dog owners even falls over when chasing Bossman back up the entranceway. A complete disaster of a match, and remember, Pepper died for this.
For nothing.
It certainly wasn't a career-ending match or anything like that, but for viewers at home, it wasn't good. You kind of feel bad for Al Snow and the Bossman because it sounds like Russo and the WWF didn't follow up on their promises, those promises that were made about the trained dogs and all that, but it's hardly surprising either. The Kennel from Hell match then gets remembered for all the wrong reasons, and you'll find this match on lists and articles and YouTube videos that count down the worst gimmick matches in WWE history. Let me know your thoughts on the Kennel from Hell match, and let me know what other gimmick matches you thought were pretty bad, not only in WWF or WWE, but across all promotions. This might be a topic we come back to in the future. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.
Yeah, this was definitely another one of them. Looked good on paper, but wasn't well executed match as well too. Same with the Pajami Prison match and some other matches as well too. It was like that. And of course, who else to blame is fucking Vince Russo. Oh my god, it just like, oh, of course. Like, he gotta be one of the biggest cancer in wrestling behind the scenes, man. For real. Oh boy. Other than that, either way, this was an interesting one to watch though, for real though. Because I remember most of it though, but to hear the full story about it as well too. Get some flashback of the whole little situation, like him making him feed the dog. Oh my god, it was so fucked up. I know it's fake, but it was just fucked up. And saying you see the kids was getting traumatized by it though. They said they daddy had to tell them, okay, it's fine. This is time we gotta tell you that wrestling's fake. Yeah, but I want to do the same thing when Earthquake was feeding was trying to feed folks the snake burgers of Damien. After he sat on them. he sat on him, he stomped him, I forgot what he did. Anyway, but still, if y'all remember that back in the day, I heard about that a little bit later. Well, I think I somewhat remember. I remember stomping on David. I remember the burgers thing because he used to come to late night shows that they used to have that I ain't watching. But still, it wasn't like a wrestling show, like the little talk show thing they was trying to expand for a minute. But anyway. Other than that, if you like my reaction to this, very awful, cringy match. That, well, like I said, looked good on paper, just was very, very, very poorly executed because they didn't read the room. They didn't do what they wanted to do to get highly trained dogs twice in a row. Pepper wasn't trained. The Rock wasn't trained, and that was a big disaster. Either way. It's your boy T-Bear signing off. One love.